And welcome to another edition of Bigfootspad Live. On the show with me today, you have Nick and Tim, of course, as always. Right now, it looks like we are going to have a very interesting show today talking about the Nevada Triangle. For those of you who don't know what that is, I guess we're going to tell you in just a minute, but it's similar to the Bermuda Triangle, but I don't want to give too much away yet. So, Nick, you want to sound off with a little bit of team news before we get into our usual news?
Well, in about a month, we are going to be renting out a historical location for a ghost hunt, which is going to be very exciting. The building was built around 1937-38 in the middle of a small desert town not too far from here in Las Vegas. And we'll see what kind of things we can catch. We're going to be busting out our old camera system that we got in 2005, 2006, an old CCTV system.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of give its last voyage here because we're going to try to upgrade our team equipment. And we're shopping around right now looking for different gadgets and devices that could really spruce things up and we can have fun with.
You have anything you want to add to that, Tim, before we get into our usual news?
No, Nick, we're the best. Yeah, we gotta, and we're still gonna bust out old boxy, is what we call it.
Yeah, we're gonna
every
try,
now and then too.
Yeah, we're in the middle of updating all of our equipment, and I don't know, for some reason we got this crazy idea. We want to try and use our old early 2000s camera system and see how that does.
It's caught a lot of stuff over the years.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna try to do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, we used to do ghost hunts all the time and do like little trips out of state and things like that. Me, Tim, and Nick agreed that once a month we're going to try to do a live ghost hunt or a live something where we're not doing a formal show like we're doing at the moment, but like drive out somewhere. And if we have cell phone service, we're going to try to do a live show. So that should be interesting. Like Nick was saying, the very first one that we're going to try to do will probably be that historic community center. I guess I'd call it a community center. John randomly sent us a sad face. but yeah, so we're going to get into our usual news. We'll give a little bit more on our team individual news about us a little bit later. So I got 3 news stories for today. Let's do this one. The very first one I'm going to share, it is about another UFO being sighted over Las Vegas. So let's get into this first. And then, like I said, a little bit later, we'll...
Yeah, I heard about that.
Oh, yeah. So real quick, it says, another UFO is spotted flying over Las Vegas weeks after the family claimed that 10-foot tall aliens with large shiny eyes are spotted in their backyard. Another unidentified object in the sky has been spotted. See, I just said that. 2 beams of light can be seen in the sky, hovering next to one another in the new clip that was posted on social media. It was filmed on Wednesday, June 22nd, so about a week ago, a little over a week, at 10:30 p.m. over Las Vegas. The objects appeared for about 20 minutes straight, it says. There's a still image of it. There's a video I have, too.
It looks like it's out in Henderson, I think.
Either Henderson or a little bit past where Nick lives. So here's the video.
Trust me, people are watching it right now.
Thought that was Nick talking at first. So that's kind of cool. What do you think, Nick?
You know what? I might have seen this UFO. I'm not sure. One night I was out smoking. Yeah, and I saw like a string of lights in the sky going across the sky, and then they just vanished. It's probably about like 6 or 7 red lights were just going straight across the sky like this. And that might be what I saw here.
Well,
yeah, it sounds like it.
You live somewhat close to where that is.
Yeah, I wanted to record the one I saw, but it disappeared before I could grab my phone. It was crazy. Just like a chain of lights going across the sky, and then they vanished. I'm like,
John says Jerome, Arizona. I'm asking, like, where? Are you in, Jerome? So the next one I'm going to share, this one, it says, does the Earth reside within the depths of a black hole? So there's no video for this one, but I have like a short article. It might sound unthinkable, but is our universe simply the interior of a black hole that is situated within another universe? What ultimately happens to everything that gets consumed by a black hole remains something of an enigma. Is it a compressed intro, an infinitesimally small point in space? Does it emerge somewhere else? Is the inside of a black hole like a universe unto itself? Perhaps most intriguingly of all, are we actually inside one right now? Physicists have been attempting to understand the nature of our universe for centuries, but one theory that hasn't really been discussed that much contends that the Earth is actually situated inside of a black hole at the moment. Like Russian nesting dolls, and perhaps universes can exist inside one another, and black holes are the key. But if this is true, how could the Earth have made it intact into a black hole without getting spaghettified? The answer could simply be that we have been here all along. And then it goes on to talk about some tests and things that scientists were doing. And it says this could help explain why our universe is expanding into as the black hole expands, though it does beg the question, how did such a universe get started? So that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. What do you think of that, Nick?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
The fact or the thought that we're living in a black hole, I guess it could be possible because if we're inside the black hole, we wouldn't know it. I guess it's quite a stretch of imagination, in my opinion. But again, it's like living in a simulation. The entities in the simulation, i.e., us, wouldn't know that we're in the simulation. So it's an interesting mental exercise to put.
An interesting theory.
An interesting theory. Yeah.
Didn't we actually mention something similar to this to Stanton Friedman when we used to have him on our old show? I could have sworn that he went off on a rant talking about this before with us a long time ago.
Most likely, yeah.
So this next one, I'm going to share my screen once again. This one is a video about some ghost footage that was taken at this is from Coast to Coast AM. It says, an attendee at a music festival in England captured footage of a curious anomaly that she suspects could be a ghost. The spooky scene was reportedly filmed early Monday morning at the famed Glastonbury Festival as Georgia Beach was sitting around a campfire at a spot known as the Stone Circle. Wanting to capture the atmosphere of the moment, she pulled out her cell phone and took a short video of the scene. When Beach sent the footage to her mother the following day, she received a rather odd reply. She said, "I can't believe the video you sent me," the young woman recalled. "I didn't know what she was talking about." So without reading this long thing, basically what happened was she wrote, "My fiance said it could have been smoke from the fire, and some people suggested that maybe it was a camera glare, but it's not in time with the camera," she says. "The figure flies past faster as the camera moves." So let's see what you guys think of this one. I'm kind of curious what kind of music this is. What do you think of that, Nick, while it's in slow motion?
It's definitely interesting. The drumming could have summoned up a spirit. It could be non-human. I mean, there's a reason why shamans would employ the use of drums and other instruments during their ceremonies to get in contact with the spirit world. So I think these people just kind of brought something in with the whole vibe they have going on.
So you're saying you think it is a spirit, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, it looks very weird. It's not like a glare or anything. So I think it's pretty much. It looks pretty legit to me. Just shitty music though.
Sounds like. Oh yeah, I say sounds like something Nick would listen to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm writing John back. John, he was writing as he says, Jerome is a haunted town only an hour from here. Oh yeah, I know of Jerome, Arizona. I just wasn't sure if like you guys were in Arizona, and I mean, of course you're in Arizona, you live there. But I was like, I don't know if you're in Jerome right now or if you were just telling us about it. I wasn't sure. Okay, so while John replies, so we're gonna get started with tonight's topic. We do have quite a bit to discuss tonight. David's in the chat room. He says, very strange. Hey, David, if you want to join us, you can. I sent you the link, or I could resend it to you if you want. If you just want to be in the chat tonight, that's cool too. Just let me know.
Yeah, I got that stupid beat in my head now.
Nick, I should put that as a radio show beat that we play periodically throughout the show.
Yeah, play it when Tim's talking.
Yeah, and yours is the tool. So we're gonna get started with tonight's topic for now. The very first thing I wanted to mention. So we're talking about the Nevada Triangle on the show tonight. For those of you who do or don't know what this is, it's probably for most people a subject that you've never heard about. It's very interesting. Sorry, David wrote me. My laptop took a shit. Anyway, so I guess David's not coming on for tonight. But anyway, so most of you probably have never heard of this phenomenon. When you think of the Bermuda Triangle, the first thing you think of lost planes, lost ships sinking into the depths of the ocean down near the Bahamas and over in that general area. You think of UFOs, Earth magnetics, strange losses of time, all that kind of stuff. Well, this area that we're about to talk about right now is supposed to be similar, I guess. I don't know who the very first person was that logged all this, but this is pretty interesting. Before we get started, Tim and Nick, have you guys heard about this before I scheduled the show?
Vaguely, I have heard of it.
Yeah,
you have
a lot of detail.
Background knowledge, yeah.
So you said you kind of heard of it, both of you?
Yeah, and like there's like an Alaskan one as well.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into the Bermuda Triangle because most people know what that is, and that's not really what the show's about. So the Nevada Triangle is an area that covers about 25,000 miles. It stretches from Las Vegas going northwest up to Reno and heading south down to Fresno. Here, let me pull up the picture of this real quick to show everyone. The Nevada Triangle. Here, I'm going to share my screen real quick so everyone knows what I'm talking about. So this is the Nevada Triangle, roughly. I don't know if you guys could see that very good.
Yeah, it's definitely visible.
Yeah, so this is from a news website. And the Nevada Triangle, like I said, it basically covers, it's actually mostly in California. I don't know why they refer to it as Nevada Triangle, but yeah, so covers 25,000 miles. It stretches from Vegas, going northwest up to Reno, going south down to Fresno, and then back to Las Vegas again. This is a number I thought that was kind of astonishing. They said there's roughly 2,000 aircraft have gone missing since the 1960s in this area.
Oh, so that is very weird.
That's about 3 disappearances every month since the 1960s. And some of the planes turn up missing in wreckage form, and others vanish without a trace and are never found. That's a pretty big number if you think about that.
It really is.
That is
every month. That's pretty crazy. So I guess you'd make money if you were some kind of rescue worker or a salvage company in that area, I guess.
Yeah. Search and rescue, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So about the Nevada Triangle, a little bit more about it. Most of the Nevada Triangle is in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So this is mountainous, mostly woods-like scenery. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Some of the popular national parks that are within the triangle are Yosemite, Kings Canyon, and Sequoia National Park. So these are some pretty big areas, some popular areas. Area 51 boundary runs fairly close to the Nevada Triangle boundary as well. Depending on who you ask, some people say that Area 51 is within the boundaries. Some people say that it's close to the boundaries. So, so you get what we're saying here. Kind of a strange area. The total number of aircrafts that have gone missing in the Nevada Triangle have greatly outnumbered those that have reported missing in the Bermuda Triangle. There's been about 30 unsolved cases of aircraft or marine disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle since the late 1800s. That's far smaller than the number of 2,000 vanished airplanes in the Nevada Triangle in the last 60 years. So before we get a little bit deeper into this, we're mostly talking about missing planes here. They do have missing people reports, but those I thought are a little bit more... we could be sitting here for like 100 years talking about missing people in a 2,000
Oh,
mile.
yeah.
What do you think, Tim?
Oh, what's that? Sorry. I was advertising the...
Oh, I was saying, when we're talking about the Nevada Triangle, I'm mostly going to be talking about airplanes tonight, like plane disappearances.
Right.
Because there are reports of missing people, but I was telling Nick, we could be talking all night long about one missing persons case.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a whole different type of show altogether. That's like a...
Agreed. We're just general missing stuff today.
Yeah, tonight's mostly about airplanes. Sorry, I'm writing something on our Facebook real quick. Yeah, so the first case I want to talk about is probably the most famous. I guess I mentioned the two most famous cases before we get into the ones that kind of aren't very famous. There's a man named Steve Fawcett. Steve Fawcett was a record-setting aviator, a sailor, and an adventurer. He was also the first person to fly solo nonstop around the world in a balloon. On September 3rd, 2007, Fawcett took off in his super decathlon from a small Nevada airstrip and seemingly vanished into thin air. Search and rescue operations went on for weeks, costing about $700,000. Yet Fawcett was not found until over a year later when a hiker stumbled across his ID cards scattered along a trail. They were found about 65 miles from where he first took off. I guess his plane was found on a ridge. Investigators didn't find any mechanical issues with the aircraft. During the search and rescue crews found about 8 other plane crashes they didn't know about. And every one of them, I guess they didn't know if one of these was Steve's plane, so they had to investigate all these other plane crashes. And it was supposed to be the most complex search and rescue in modern U.S. history up at that point. So, without further ado, I'll hand that off to you and Nick for a moment while I post on the Facebook real quick.
Yeah, I remember that story about 2007, 2008-ish, and there was a big thing here in the media in Las Vegas where they were talking about trying to find him, and I think they really found a couple of his phones and his IDs, I think, were found as well.
They said they found his IDs, but what was kind of weird about it was they actually found his shoes, I guess, were located somewhere, and the shoes had animal bites on them. Like, I guess some animals got to his body and were doing something.
Not it.
Yeah.
He was picked apart by the scavengers.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to mention, though, about the Steve Fawcett case, whether you think it was something caused by the Nevada Triangle or you think this was something caused by the weather, whatever the case is, this was a pretty famous guy. This guy was a millionaire, from what I believe. He was an adventurer, an outdoorsman, an aviator. He knew what he was doing, or at least it appeared he did. What do you think, Nick? Because I know we don't have all the details about the case, but would he have simply just crashed his plane and had bad luck? Could this have been some kind of force? I know there's lots of stories about, as crazy as it sounds, people talk about aliens somehow being involved or UFOs.
Yeah, I've heard that. My personal thought on his accident and all the other accidents, or most of them, is that it's just an area with really high, steep, rugged mountains combined with some really bad winds, which create for a lot of turbulence. And when you throw in people that are tired and experienced and a variety of other factors, you're going to get a lot of these missing planes and crashes. Now, what happened to Fawcett? I'm not sure. I don't know if they ever recovered his black box, if his plane had one, but it was probably just a natural disaster. He probably just hit a bad pocket of turbulence and lost control of his plane, and unfortunately, he crashed and passed away.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Tim? You think would someone as experienced as him crash their plane, or what do you think?
Like I said, like Nick said, the weather is really bad in that area. But yeah, I think no matter how experienced you are, you can't help but some net every now and then you get thrown a curveball by Mother Nature. But it's just weird how many planes have went missing, and I was just researching it though.
Yeah,
that's a lot of planes.
We have. Yeah. Anyways, so continuing on. The next case I want to talk about is called the Gambler's Special. This was from 1969, so we're going back about 40, 50 years. The plane was called the Gambler's Special because it carried passengers who played a lot of money at Las Vegas casinos. The plane was found after it had hit a cliff and slid down a snowbank. All 35 passengers were found dead. The plane was found off course as if it tried taking a different route unexpectedly, which no one knows why. The wreckage was found at Mount Whitney, the highest mountain in the Sierra Nevadas. Oddly enough, after examining the wreckage, there was no evidence of any mechanical or electrical malfunction. It's unclear what caused the plane to crash. Allegedly, this is something I just threw in there. Allegedly, there's stories that a hiker hiked the exact spot of the crash, and he found a tube of lipstick laying on the ground, along with some mascara, which was surprisingly still wet inside. He also found shiny coins that were most likely from a slot machine. And even more magic was the stewardess's jacket. So what we know really happened was, so this plane is carrying all these gamblers. They don't say exactly where it's going. I'm guessing it's come from Nevada to California. This plane hits a mountain, but they said it was off course, like it unexpectedly veered off course for whatever reason. And you said you think it's probably the weather, Nick?
Yeah.
It plays a big factor anyway.
What do you think of the legend of the lipstick and whatnot? You think that's BS, Nick, or what do you think?
Yeah, I just with the Nevada Triangle, I just think it's environmental factors. However, like Tim did just say, there is a large amount of aircrafts. It's just 2,500 plus aircrafts that have been down in this particular.
Yeah, I was reading like 2,400 at least.
That's an outlier. That's a very, very big statistical outlier. So maybe there is more to the picture than environmental factors. I don't know enough about the subject to really.
Yeah, I just know of it. I don't know like the specifics though.
Well, just for fun, Nick, I want you to comment on the story about the tube of lipstick and the stewardess's jacket being found.
The two bullets.
And okay, now that's not proven to have really happened. The plane really did crash, but the tube of lipstick and all, I just read that on a couple websites, so I want you to comment on it, Nick.
I mean, it's a nice story, I guess. It's a nice story. That's all I can really say.
What do you think, Tim? You think that story's BS with the lipstick?
Yeah, but like I said, but it's probably made up for the probably made up for the legend.
Yeah, The Nevada Triangle, though, when you talk to different people about it, like I was talking to a couple of authors, they all seem to think that it's either weather conditions, which we'll get into the specific reasons later, but a lot of them are focused on the Area 51 connection, which we'll get into that too in just a moment. So we're going to kind of bounce around here. Next one, November 18th, 1942, a World War II plane and its crew vanished in the area. Peter Steckel, an investigator, discovered wreckage from a plane. 60 years later, 2 of the bodies were found uncovered in the Sierras. Another body was found in a glacier. They don't know why the plane had crashed. Steckel, he's an investigator, he says that he thinks that it's a big disservice to the military men to say that the plane crashed due to a supernatural force in the Nevada Triangle. So the reason why I got this story, I don't really list a lot of the details about why it crashed or that kind of thing. But Nick, what do you agree on that? Do you think that this is doing a disservice or making the military men look silly, saying that there's supernatural forces making these planes go down?
No, it's when you look at a subject, you have to take all factors into consideration, and supernatural factors are a thing that you have to take into consideration. They're not a very prevalent or common explanation for events. However, it can be an explanation for any given event. So I don't think that it's a disservice to the members of the military who have crashed in this area. So I can really say I don't think so.
Like, I don't know what would be more what would be a more silly story to tell. If your dad was Kenny Beach and you got to give all that story out, or if your dad died in a plane crash in a military airplane and people are telling you aliens and stories of tubes of wet lip sticking at the crash site. And so I don't know what would be worse. Trying to explain.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
So continuing on, there's a story about a B-24 bomber crash. This one I thought was the most interesting because this story is bizarre. This was in 1943. A B-24 bomber took off on December 5th from Fresno, flying to Bakersfield, California. Then it was supposed to go to Tucson and back after that. But a search mission was conducted the next day on December 6th, involving 9 B-24 bombers after the first one I mentioned didn't come back. So during the search, another B-24 bomber went missing. So the first B-24 flew off on a mission or a transport mission, whatever you want to call it. It crashed. They sent 9 more to go looking for the first one, and then another one of those crashes. The second missing B-24 was not found again until 1955, which is 12 years later.
Wow.
And they found it when Huntington Lake Reservoir was drained for repairs to the dam. The investigation into the loss of the second bomber stated that Darden... Hey, Tim, I think it's yours or Nick's giving a lot of feedback right now. And I think it was Tim's.
Oh.
I know it's yours, actually, Nick, I think. Yeah, that's what it was. So anyways, it says... a second missing B-24 was found 12 years later when Huntington Lake Reservoir was drained for repairs. The investigation into the loss of the second bomber stated that Darden, he was one of the pilots of the plane, he had experienced high wind turbulence and began to lose hydraulic pressure. When the captain saw what looked like a snow-covered clearing, he told his crew to bail and only 2 men jumped. The investigation stated that the pilot must have mistaken the frozen lake for a clearing. However, the 2 soldiers who parachuted from the plane had survived, and they made statements that the lake was not frozen. And the plane was finally found. It was resting 190 feet below the water with its 5 crew members still at their stations. So, dang.
Yeah, that sucks.
That?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pretty cool story, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was I going to say? So continuing on, back to the first missing B-24 bomber. So we found out what happened to the second one. Now here's the first one. Clinton Hester, the father of the co-pilot, his name was Robert Hester, the co-pilot, So the father, he was looking for the first missing plane and began a private search for his son that would last for 14 years. When he died of a heart attack in 1959, he still had not found his son or any evidence of the missing plane. A year later, the U.S. Geological Survey researchers found that the airplane wreckage they found the wreckage in and near an unnamed lake. Later, Army investigators revealed that the wreckage was that of the first missing bomber piloted by Lieutenant Willis and Lieutenant Robert Hester. The lake is now called Hester Lake in California. So that's kind of a weird coincidence. Both those planes ended up in strange
water.
Yeah, they both ended up in lakes up there. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, the locations the planes were found in are definitely strange, and like the locations of where some of these planes are found, along with just the high volume of crashes, has got my ears opened up a little bit and my mind to be a little more open to different explanations instead of just the weather.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that's got to be rough when you think about it. Your son's missing, and then they send another plane to go look for him, and they end up crashing too. I was like, Jesus. So May 9th, 1957, another military plane went missing. This one was a T-33 training jet. Air Force Lieutenant David Stevens was piloting a T-33 training jet taken off from Hamilton Air Force Base, which is near San Francisco, flying to Arizona. I don't know if you guys noticed this. A lot of these planes are coming from Northern California or Nevada going to Arizona.
Yeah.
After an unsuccessful...
Weird bad weather up there, too.
Oh, yeah. After an unsuccessful search, the Air Force declared David Stevens was dead. 54 days later, the pilot reappeared, gaunt and dressed in tattered and filthy clothing. He had made his way to the camp of backcountry Kings Canyon National Park, which is east of Fresno, California. He described that when something in the plane exploded unexpectedly, he briefly blacked out but came to in time to eject from the plane, badly injuring both ankles when he landed. Dragging his parachute to keep him warm, he crawled over 20 miles in freezing temperatures at 12,000 feet elevation for 15 days without food or shelter. Finally, he came upon an abandoned National Park service cabin where he found a few cans of food as well as fishing equipment. When he then survived by fishing and killed a deer with his pistol. After regaining some of his strength to help him find civilization, during which time he nearly drowned in Kings River before stumbling upon a pack train guide who took him by horse to civilization. No remains of his plane have ever been found except for the canopy of his jet, which was found by Boy Scouts in 1977.
Wow, what a badass.
Yeah. What do you think of that one? Just pretty hardcore when you think about it.
Yeah, it is just the survival conditions. What a badass, huh, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. To survive being ejected out of a plane and then to walk 15 miles plus survive off grid with the injuries that he sustained is miraculous. There's nothing short of that. The guy's very admirable.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I have a couple more that I want to talk about. Actually, quite a few more. These are kind of short ones. In 1941, Lieutenant Leonard C. Linden parachuted to safety after his Army fighter squadron got lost in the mountains. His P-40 fell within a mile of where he landed from the remote Sequoia in Kings Canyon National Park. To this day, the wreckage has never been found. So somewhere out there's all these military planes laying out there. One reason I thought I'd talk about the military planes more than the personal or private planes was you figure these guys had some kind of training, and these weren't just like everyday yahoos. These were actual like trained guys in crews of multiple people. So I thought these would be a little bit more interesting.
Exactly.
Another famous case was the missing aviator Charles Ogle. a wealthy real estate developer who lifted off from Oakland, California in 1964, but vanished going to Las Vegas, Nevada. The Marine Corps' trained pilot was never heard from or seen again, and his plane has never been found. So they're saying he vanished in thin air. I don't know if you would consider that vanishing, or maybe they just haven't found the wreckage. Who knows? Nick looks like he's reading something. But on July 11th, 1986, Major Ross Mulhare, oh, I hear it, he flew an F-117 into a mountain near Bakersfield, California. The cause of the crash has never been revealed. So you're saying a lot of these you think are weather-related, Nick? I do have a question. So they're saying that a lot of these planes were crashed according to weather conditions. But the last couple that I mentioned actually crashed in the desert regions of Southern California. So what do you think of that, Nick?
Well, it could be weather conditions as well, because dust devils are a thing. And then you also can get those desert winds. But without having any eyewitnesses or any kind of evidence to indicate what happened, I'm just more bound to go with the weather, reason being the planes crashed. But
yeah,
without any more proof of anything, we can only engage in speculation.
Right.
It's just speculation. And I would just like to go with the simple answer. With Tim's song. That's going to be his song now.
So this is unrelated, but my audio sounds like it's messing up, and Nick and Tim sound exactly like the Star Wars door leading to Jabba's palace where the robot talks to him. That's what Nick and Tim sound. So,
you guys sound fine to me.
Yeah, me too. For me, it sounds fine.
Maybe it's just my speakers or something. So the next one I want to talk about is a guy named Jim Shamp. In the 1970s, he helped search for a missing plane that was lost in the Sierra Nevada mountains. He says this is how smart this is. He says the Civil Air Patrol gave the okay for all planes to join in the search. So a lot of these planes weren't planes that would commonly be in a search and rescue mission. And he says 3 more planes crashed mysteriously while looking for the lost plane, and they were never found either. So this sounds like this sounds like almost like I don't know if it has something to do with the magnetics, or if this has something to do with, like Nick was saying, the winds and things.
Yeah, the weather, or something Mother Nature.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into that real quick. So I wrote the major causes of the missing planes. So the first one I wanted to talk about, it's winds that they refer to as mountain waves. Before we get into this, have any of you heard of the mountain waves? I think Nick probably has if he was reading up on this.
Yeah, I read up on it a little bit.
Vaguely, yeah.
I think it's a mixture of the jet stream coming through and then hitting the mountains, and it creates turbulence. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So it says mountain waves. They're fast-moving winds that happen at a mountainside and create oscillations of air above the mountain. So it's almost like I compare it to almost like a reverse tornado, like strong moving winds, like high up in the air. Instead of being down on the ground, they're like up in the air. And it says if one occurs while a plane is flying over, it might suddenly get carried on the wind and suddenly lose control, causing it to crash. They compared it online of a boat being carried off with a wave. In the Sierra Nevada mountains, the winds come up the mountain smoothly on the west side and descend rapidly on the east side, causing a lot of turbulence. A lot of the planes that crash in the Nevada Triangle are private planes, so they're more easily carried away by the mountain wave winds.
I believe they're right, because they're lighter and
oh yeah, for sure,
not as powerful.
The thing is, though, about as far as the private planes go, I think a lot of those could be dismissed as these strange winds causing them to crash. But the military bombers, a lot of them have various training. Some of them are been flying for a long time. Some of them can't or haven't. But I would think that the military bombers would be a little bit more careful with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. However, no matter how good a pilot is, they're not going to be able to overcome Mother Nature if there's a very bad storm or wind tunnel or something that pops up. It knocks them out.
Yeah.
Even the best can fail sometimes.
So this is the next part I'm going to mention is like a personal experience. Me and Nick have been on a show called the Talk with Vince show, and we had talked to Vince Martin a number of times. He says that back in, what was it, the 90s, early 2000s, he says he was on a cargo plane and they were flying over Mount Charleston, Nevada, which is outside a little, I don't know, about 20, 30 miles outside of Vegas. And he was saying that when they were flying over that mountain range, that there's some kind of turbulence or some kind of air pocket hit the plane. And he said it happened more than once where the plane would suddenly drop drastically. And he says they almost hit those mountains at least like 5 or 10 times.
That'd scare you.
Do you remember that story, Nick?
I vaguely recall him telling that. This was years ago he said this, but I do remember him talking about it a little bit.
And I could have sworn, too, that we also had a friend named Steve up in Ely, and he said when he was in the National Guard or the military, he said that he had the same thing happen when he was flying in airplanes over that mountain range.
Well, I've been on, a few flights going back to when I was a little kid that have come into Las Vegas, and they always seem to notice that the plane starts to shake a little bit when it's coming down into Vegas, into the valley over the mountains. So I definitely think there's some kind of extra turbulence that's generated by the wind coming off of the mountains around here, and then by extension, all of the Sierra Nevadas.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing is, another one I wanted to mention, there is a C-54 military plane that crashed in Mount Charleston in 1955. Do you know about that, Nick?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, they were saying that it was flying a secret mission going from Las Vegas Nellis Air Force Base, I believe it was, going to Area 51. They were saying that why they were flying and what they were doing traveling to Area 51 has been classified, and the military to this day still hasn't told them exactly what they were doing. But I guess they didn't even say until somewhat recently, within the last 20, 30 years, that these guys were headed to Area 51.
Yeah, I mean, it's from the Cold War, where there are a lot of things that are shrouded in mystery that the government doesn't want us to know about. They're still keeping it secret for whatever reason, but it involves Area 51, so it's spooky.
Yeah, we're lucky to hear that.
So mine and Tim's mom actually wrote it. She said that happens every time I fly into Vegas. The turbulence is awful.
Yeah, for sure.
That is very true.
They do have the Carol Lombard crash site out in Mount Potosi. They said that they supposedly, I guess they had some kind of beacons that the military used to turn on. And I guess Clark Gable's wife, Carol Lombard, was with a number of guys on this plane, and they were supposed to be selling war bonds, and they were traveling around. And I guess from what I was reading, they were saying that there were some beacons the military turned on to show where the tips of the mountaintop were. And for some reason, I don't know if there was a storm, I don't quite remember, but I guess they were saying that these beacons weren't turned on, and the pilot that was flying Carol Lombard's airplane with this number of soldiers, they ended up crashing into the top of Mount Potosi, which is right outside of Las Vegas, because they were trying to fly by sight because their equipment wasn't working and these beacons weren't turned on. You guys know that story, right?
Yeah.
You know that story, Tim?
Of course, yeah. And if you can't live in Vegas and not know about it.
Yeah, it's supposedly some of the wreckage is still up there on the mountain. I know, of course, they got as much of the bodies as they could get out of there, but supposedly some of the guys were almost just vaporized, or they don't know what happened to them. I
mean, I remember years and years ago we were talking about possibly trying to find the crash site because we've never personally been there. At least I
Yep.
haven't.
Mhm.
And maybe we should look into it. That could be a BFP trip because
It could be.
the Potosi site was bought out by the developer 2 or 3 years ago, and
Mhm.
I don't know if they've started building that master community up there, but we should try to get up there before they start bulldozing and building the houses.
Oh yeah, I'd like to for sure. I always wanted to head up there. I know they said that supposedly, if you want to go hike up
Yeah.
there, that they said it's like near vertical climbing is what they were saying.
Oh, geez.
I mean,
Sounds like fun.
obviously, if Zach Baggins and the Ghost Adventures could head up there with the camera crew, it can't be that hard, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, I wrote something in the chat, in the private chat. I wanted you to check out.
Yeah.
So, moving on. This part was something that I know Nick has studied, and we're going to talk about some of the more obscure reasons why they say the Nevada Triangle has planes that come down. The first one I wanted to talk about was the UFO aspect to it. Some people were saying that this part of the country, of course, Nevada, supposedly has some of the most UFO sightings in the planet. If you want to count how often we see UFOs here, how many of those are real and how many are man-made UFOs is up for grabs. But allegedly, some of these UFOs have shot down these civilian airplanes in the past, and some of these military planes. I was going to say, I know we talked to Frank Vicino, who talked about several of these military craft that were shot down on the East Coast by UFOs in the past. Can you talk a little bit about that, or what the knowledge that you have on that?
Well, we talked to Frank Ficino, and I've read other stories of where UFOs have shot at human aircraft for whatever reason. They deemed them to be hostile. I mean, if they are military planes, they definitely are potentially hostiles to the extraterrestrials. But in the context of the Nevada Triangle, I suppose some of these downcraft could be a result of UFOs shooting at them, or maybe there could be a midair collision. It's beyond me again, without really having any concrete evidence, any eyewitness testimony or video,
or personally being there.
or personally being there, yeah, and seeing it with my own eyes and hearing it with my own ears. I really can only speculate, but there are a lot of weird things that go on in the skies here over Nevada. So
Well, I know that me and Nick drove out to a couple's house that lived, I want to say it was in Laughlin, and Nick talked to the family for quite a while about how their dad was in a plane that I guess they were saying something about allegedly the last thing that their dad was texting him when he was in one of the passenger seats was that there was a light next to the plane. Can you talk a little bit about that, Nick? I know that was pretty crazy when you and me talked to them.
Yeah. Before the plane had gone down, they said their dad said there were weird lights over that were coming near the windows. And they said it was like something out of the Langoliers or something. And it's just a really spooky story to hear and to remember.
Well, it makes you think maybe it could be part of the triangle.
Well, they said the plane actually went down somewhere. I don't believe. What was it, Nick? Was it like up by? I want to say it was it by like Pahrump somewhere, like out that way?
Yeah, I think it was near Death Valley, Pahrump.
How did you find this witness? Is my question. I always wondered that to this day. Like, how did you pull this person out of thin air? Like, how did you find this person?
I used to run the Instagram. I need to get back on top of that. I slack off.
Yeah.
I think
I meet all sorts of people on the Twitter too.
Yeah, but I think they wrote this particular family had contacted me on Instagram when I was a little more active with it.
So, Nick, so do you think that we could get back in touch with these individuals and we could head up to the crash site? Like,
Yeah.
did they ever say that they found the crash site for the dad, or I thought the dad, I don't know if he died or did he not die? Like, what ended up happening? Do you know?
I think he had passed away, and they did find remnants of the crash and
They just kind of died out there.
everything. Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. I know we could get more into UFOs shooting down planes and stuff on another show. We kind of mentioned it a little bit on our Battle for Washington, D.C. show, but I figured we'll get into that another time. I'd like to have Frank Fresno come on the show and talk about himself.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
He wrote, I have his book. That's probably the most in-depth book I've ever seen on UFOs. It's in like tiny font in like 500 pages. That book is
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
Yeah, it took me months and months to get through it. So the next part I wanted to mention is Earth magnetics.
Mm-hmm.
And I compare this to the Bermuda Triangle, where they say it causes planes to go off course. It causes their compasses to spin wild, or their compasses won't work at all. What do you think about that, Tim? Do you think that maybe there could be some kind of weird magnetic things because they have all these tall mountains, and maybe
Very possible, and it's earthquake. A lot of parts of the triangle are like near earthquake boundaries, and maybe it has something to play into part with it.
What do you think, Nick? I know we haven't really had a Bermuda Triangle show per se, but what do you think? Could there be some kind of magnetics in the mountains or in that part of the Earth? Because I know they were saying that some of these planes, like the Gambler's Special and some of these military planes, were found to have gone off course unexpectedly.
Yeah, maybe magnetics had part to do with it.
Yeah, our Earth is a very bizarre place, and the laws of nature can be somewhat mind-bending, and the electromagnetic fields can definitely throw a pilot's instruments off. And
what do you think of that, Nick? San Andreas fault line.
Yeah. There's probably something that comes from that alters the
or at least part of it, yeah.
And I don't even know if that's a word, electrosphere, but I'm going to use it. It probably alters the electrosphere of the area, and that could mess with the pilot's instruments, and inevitably they crash.
So the next part, I don't have too much more to add to the Earth magnetics question. So this other one is a little bizarre. Someone stated on a website that they believe that there are portals to other dimensions or wormholes that might possibly exist in that part of the country, or they kind of exist appear out of nowhere, for loss of words. This story I'm about to say, it's not from the Nevada Triangle, but this is from the Bermuda Triangle. And this is just kind of something along the lines of wormholes. A pilot by the name of Bruce Gernon, he says, "I didn't believe in time travel or teleportation until it happened to me." And he says, the pilot alleges that a fog surrounded my craft and I leapt ahead 100 miles suddenly. He says, "You don't believe it?" Luckily, Gernon documented what happened and memorized every detail of that flight. He published his book of his experience in 2017. And that's a man named Bruce Gernon. G-E-R.
I've heard of that before.
What do you think of that, Nick? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. What do you call it? I think maybe that's what probably happened to that Malaysian flight from around 2012.
Right.
If you remember, they had that Air Malaysia plane that just vanished to the earth, and then they never found any wreckage, any bodies.
Exactly.
So a wormhole is an interesting idea, and I think that could account for some of the lost planes here in the Nevada Triangle.
Could be.
So do you think that as far as wormholes go, I know like no one really knows why they exist or if they exist, but I know, could this, like, for instance, this is me just making this up, given a scenario. Could, like, for instance, the Gambler's Special be flying somewhere by Good Springs, Nevada? It flies into a wormhole unexpectedly, and then it suddenly appears at the edge of a cliff somewhere up by San Francisco and plows into the cliff. Is that what you mean, Nick? Like maybe something unexpected like that?
It's possible. I mean, I'm definitely not a theoretical nuclear physicist. I'm not Stanton Friedman. He'd be the person to ask this question to. But
He would.
I think wormholes could possibly just pop up and swallow an aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why that Malaysia flight's at the bottom with Bikini Bottom right now.
Yeah. My friend at work is obsessed with that Malaysia flight's disappearance. She has read everything she could about that flight. It is interesting. I haven't kept up with a whole lot of it personally. It sounds like Nick kind of has. So this is something I wanted to mention about the wormhole. Do you think it's a wormhole or is it electromagnetics of some kind? Because he said that a blue fog, a metallic electronic-looking fog, appeared around his plane right before he jumped ahead. I hate to compare it to Star Wars, but it kind of reminds me of something you see in Star Wars.
Right.
Well, also for this particular incident, the blue light could have been St. Elmo's fire or a ghost light, like we have talked about in a previous show that we had. And then they have done studies where electromagnetic fields were run through people's brains, and they did scans, and these electromagnetic fields that were put through people's brains caused them to hallucinate and feel disoriented. So maybe there was a combination of that St. Elmo's fire with an electromagnetic phenomena that made this guy think that he had gone into a wormhole.
So I don't know a whole lot about. I don't have a whole lot. I know a whole lot about St. Elmo's fire, but does it appear in that part of the country, or does it just appear all over? I'm not really sure how that works.
It appears all over the place. The weather conditions just have to be correct for St. Elmo's fire to appear. So I'm going way out in the left field with the speculation, but he could have just seen St. Elmo's fire or a similar phenomena, and then the electromagnetic conditions that were present at the time could have toyed with his perceptions and made him think that he was just hallucinating a wormhole.
So the last part of this I wanted to mention, then we'll get into a little bit of conversation after this. Is the military shooting any of these planes down? So like I said earlier, Area 51 is either close to the border of the Nevada Triangle or it's within the Nevada Triangle, depending on who you ask. Could the military be testing top secret weapons out on these planes? And is this ethical? Is it ethical for them to test these weapons out or blow these planes out of the sky because they're not supposed to be flying in that airspace anyways? What do you think, Tim?
It's possible. Like, I doubt it. Most likely, I think it's just. Sorry, London's yelling. I think it's still caused by mostly probably environmental problems, or maybe mechanical.
What do you think, Nick?
I mean, this would definitely be an interesting topic, a rabbit hole to go down and to see.
Yeah, we just don't know enough to speculate.
To see the military has shot down planes, and I bet they have. I don't put anything past the military and the federal government, so I'm sure it has happened. I just haven't read up on any documented cases of it.
But would it be ethical for them to shoot them down? I understand there's civilians flying around somewhere they're not supposed to be to begin with, but like, would it be ethical for them to do that?
I don't believe it's ethical, but the military and the government who are conducting top secret experiments at these bases don't care about ethics at all. So no, I don't think it's ethical, but I just don't think they care.
Could they actually do it and get away with it, though, is my other thing would be, by this point in time, if a lot of these planes that are missing are being shot down, are they being shot down possibly in the military either vaporizes the plane or maybe it crashes on their land or they come and get it, I guess, according to that theory?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. Like I said, there was I actually just remembered a story that a friend of mine had told me a while back.
Mhm.
They had a nephew or a cousin that was a pilot, and he was flying a small plane over Area 51. He didn't realize he had gone into restricted airspace, and they went out and they intercepted him, and they made him come down and land, and they brought him out of the plane and took him to like a bunker and questioned him. They had him cuffed, and they put him through a rigorous interrogation trying to find out why he had been flying in that restricted airspace that he didn't know. So they do take those things very seriously. And
They sure do.
could they have shot down civilian planes if they deemed them enough of a threat? Yeah.
What do you think, Tim?
That's what I said. Yeah, like Nick said, they take this kind of stuff real serious. They're definitely shoot. I wouldn't put it past them to shoot anything down.
Well, one thing I did want to mention before we start getting ready to end the show. So I know Nick and Tim were talking about they think that maybe this Nevada Triangle is mostly caused by weather formations or weather I don't even want to call it weather reasons of like related to weather. If it wasn't weather related, what would be the things you guys would think would be your second best option? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just saying
probably military government related.
Yeah, that's probably my second guess.
Due to all the bases, because I mean we have Area 51, Nellis. What's that base that your grandfather had served out there in California? Fort Irwin. I think we got Edwards. There's a lot of bases in this area.
Yep, all within like 300 miles.
So maybe the military's in on it. I don't know.
Yeah. Forgot to put our banner up during the show. I was so in depth with the conversation. I forgot all about putting up our links and whatnot. So we don't have too much left in the show because there really isn't that much information on the Nevada Triangle unless you want to get into specific incidents. Like I was saying, we mostly covered military aircraft coming down into as far as my stories go, because I figured that those are probably a little bit more interesting than the private plane stories. So we are definitely going to do another show next week. I don't know if we're going to do it on Saturday or Sunday yet. I know we're still figuring out what we're going to do. I do have a request from our Facebook though, so I have to play this one more time. Then I'll do my closing remarks. Let's see. Here we go for Nick. Music, Nick?
Yep, I think we have to get that song off Spotify or something like that.
Yeah. So I had to play it one more time for Nick and Tim.
Oh,
yeah.
What do you think, Nick? That's going to be a BFP.
I think we're gonna have to play that.
I do have an idea. I think I'm going to make a new Bigfootspad intro or outro video one of these days. I'm going to put that as the theme song while the video's playing.
Yeah.
So getting back on topic. So the Nevada Triangle, this is one question I do kind of want to ask in all serious note. Do you think the Nevada Triangle even exists, or is it just a big coincidence that the weather is causing a million planes to crash in this area? Like, could you even call it a mystery or a phenomenon, or is it just the weather's bad and people don't just make careless mistakes?
No, I definitely think it's a phenomenon. Like I remarked at the beginning of the show, over 2,000, 3,000 planes going down in this specific area shows a repeating pattern and occurrence. So it's definitely a phenomena.
Yeah, not just a coincidence.
Yeah, it's if it was like a dozen planes or even like 100 or two, you could say, oh, it's a coincidence of the weather, whatever. But we're talking about thousands of planes going down in one specific area. That's insane. And I think we should do a follow-up show and really deep dive into some of the individual incidents
Oh, for
where
sure.
we have some concrete evidence. Maybe people that survived, like that Marine who hiked 15 miles, see what he said.
I'm thinking we'll for sure get into the specifics. We'll have to do another show. We might have to wait about a month or so to do it, only because we have a couple of shows that we have scheduled coming up. Let's see. Sorry, I was reading something in our private chat here. So we're going to end the show for tonight. One thing I do want to mention before we end it would be, again, our show is Bigfootspad Live is a viewer-driven show. And that means that we will never charge money. We're not going to beg for super chats. Basically, the show is driven by you. So we need you to either click that like button if you haven't already, subscribe to us, share our videos, show your support, because we appreciate you guys tuning in every week. And we do have a pretty decent amount of numbers start coming in. Our show is about 4 months old at this point, and like we said, we're still building our audience, and the rubber duck helps. So again, tune in next Saturday or next Sunday. I'm going to post it probably Monday or Tuesday. I'm guessing Monday, whatever our next show is going to be. Nick and Tim, I want you guys to stay on for just a minute, because we're going to have a discussion about next week's show once this show ends. So with that, I'm going to have Tim and Nick stay on the line so we can talk afterwards, and I'm going to leave you guys with our ending scenario.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you.